Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be working on glute activation, more specifically the foot relationship through the hip and into the spine and how that involves getting the glutes to activate, especially with balance. I want good balance on right side and left side of the glute. So we're going to work on some foot mobility, kind of open up the spring mechanisms of the foot, mobility of the hips and the spine, and then in the end we're going to be working on some assessments to see how can we get the glutes to kind of balance out, to get good activation through both sides of the glutes. Let's get started. We're going to start on our back, getting into our crocodile breath. So we're going to make some nice big C shapes with our hands. Placing the hands below the ribs and above the hip bone. I want to make sure that we are not pressing onto bone, but we're in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Thumbs are going to go into the back. So I want to be able to press lightly into the low back musculature. Index fingers are pressing into the abdominals on the front, into your belly. I want to be able to press into the abdominal musculature. And the side, your palms are pressing into the side body. We're going to squeeze lightly in order to create some resistance so that when you inhale, you can feel the abdominal walls pressing out into the thumbs, into the index fingers, and into the side, into the palms. We're going to take a nice deep breath in through the nose and imagine that you're trying to blow that abdominal wall up like a balloon or like a crocodile. Then on the exhale, we're drawing navel all the way into the spine. And as you exhale, allow your hands to clench down just a little bit, again, to create that resistance so that you can immediately expand out and away with your inhale breath. And we'll get a good 5-6 breaths. With each exhale, see if you can then expand a little bit bigger. Can you get that balloon to grow a little larger with each inhale? After we get 5 to 6 breaths, drop the arms down to the side. We're going to let our legs go nice and flat, and we're going to do some baby roll stretches just to kind of get the spine lubricated. If you're prone to low back or upper back discomfort or pain, I want you to go incredibly slow on these baby rolls to make sure that we're not moving into pain. Arms are going to come up into a nice big Y position so that I want to make sure the elbows are nice and soft on the ground. If you find that your shoulders are stiff and the arms want to kind of hang in the air, let them come out a little bit wider. We're going to evenly press through both heels into the floor. So I want light pressure into the heels in order to maintain contact with both feet. And from here, we're going to use our eyeballs and our fingers to lightly reach across the body. And I kind of want to reach at a direct angle away from the same side foot. So I'm reaching with my right hand. I want to reach directly away from my right foot, keeping contact through the heel. Exhale as we reach. Inhale as we bring it back to the center. And then exhale and reach to the other side. The head has to lift off the floor for this. I don't want to keep the head on the floor and try to reach. Really, we're reaching with both eyeballs and fingertips. So your head's reaching with your hand as you reach across. With each one, see if you can slowly reach and extend a little bit further. And notice if it's more difficult to reach with the right arm than the left arm. Do you feel more tension in one direction than the other direction? Notice if you need to put more pressure into one foot to reach in one direction compared to the other direction. Or notice if one foot wants to kind of lift up and it's hard to maintain contact with the floor. After about 5 to 10, We're going to come back to our starting position and we're going to reach now through our feet. We're going to lift one leg up fairly high, and I want to keep it high like we're reaching up onto a shelf. I don't want that leg to drop down to the floor because that can create some pinch in the hip or the low back. We're going to reach and allow the shoulder blade to lift off the floor lightly, but keep some contact with the back of the hand as we exhale. Inhale, bringing it back to the center. Exhale, reach across to the other side. And with each one, we're seeing how far can we reach and extend through the toes, maintaining some contact with the back of the hand, that back of the palm, or even just light touch of the fingernails. But I want to make sure the shoulder blade is coming off the floor. We're not trying to hold the shoulder down. And as you're going back and forth, again, start to notice, how does this feel as you reach with the right leg compared to reaching with the left leg? Do you have more tension on the right side or left side of your low back? Does one shoulder feel a little more tight and even a little achy? And again, I want to make sure that we are not moving into pain. We'll come back to our center starting point, and now we're going to do a little pre-assessment for glute function. And this is, again, we're looking to see how is the balance in our glutes, and this is really a neurological assessment right now. We're going to bring one foot flat to the floor, and we're going to move that foot out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. So my other leg is completely straight. This foot is out about 45 degrees. And I want to make sure that we have a nice tripod foot. So tripod foot, I want to make sure ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel are equally loaded to the ground. The knee placement is going to be important here. If your knee is directly over your heel, as you press down, you're going to press down evenly through that tripod. If the knee turns in, it's going to lift your pinky toe up off the floor. If your knee turns out, it's going to lift your big toe off the floor, and you'll be in a bipod, not a tripod. So make sure that knee stays placed over the heel and really feel that 3 points of contact in the foot throughout this assessment. From here, the leg that is flat needs to be completely relaxed. We're not pressing in it. It has no energy at all. We're going to drive down through our knee for the foot that is down. And as we press, we are scooping our tailbone up towards the ceiling, like we're trying to touch our hip bone to the ceiling until we get this nice extension in our hip. We're going to inhale as we bring the hip back down, exhale as we stomp into the floor and scoop the tailbone up. I like to imagine that we have grapes under our feet and we're trying to squash those grapes. We're trying to get as much of that grape juice out as we press our hip up to the ceiling. Again, opposite leg should be completely soft and relaxed. Only one hip is lifting. The other hip should stay on the ground and should not be lifting up. If so, that means you're pressing into that opposite foot. We're going to go ahead and switch across to the other side and do the same thing. Press that foot down flat, move it out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. Feel that tripod nature of the foot, making sure the knee is over the heel. And we're going to press down and scoop our tailbone up like we're trying to touch the ceiling. As we exhale, inhale, we're letting the hip back down. Nice exhale and scoop. And each one, we're trying to squash more and more of that grape juice from underneath our feet and making sure that we got a good tripod, that the knee is not turning in and you're pressing more into the ball of the big toe, or that the knee is pressing out and that you're pressing more into the ball of the pinky toe. Now that we have the assessment started, I want to go back and do it again. This time I want to have a little bit more, tune in a little bit more to the differences between the left side and the right side. So again, nice tripod foot. We're going to drive down, scooping the tailbone up. With each one, we're seeing if we can get more extension through this hip. The greater the extension, the more you're going to feel your glute tighten up and contract. So I want to feel that contraction. Notice your knee. If your knee feels really shaky and wobbly, that's something I want to take notice of. Do you have a big stretch on the front of the hip is another thing to take notice of. And we'll do a good 5 to 10 reps to really get a good feel for how much activation can you get in that glute. How much can you feel it tighten up and tense as you drive that hip up to the ceiling. And then we're going to switch to the other side and compare. So again, nice flat foot, tripod position on the floor. Inhale into our breath. Exhale, drawing navel to spine and scooping the tailbone up to the ceiling. Inhale, letting it back down. And with each one, see if you can get that hip extended a little higher. Is it tighter on this side or the other side in the front of the hip? Does the knee feel more or less shaky on this side? And as you drive that hip up, are you able to feel the same amount of tightness and tension and contraction in that glute as you get into that hip extension? Again, super valuable and important things to assess. Just noticing whether we have equal neurology to the left glute and the right glute. And if there's a difference between the two, then these are things that we want to work on. All right, we're going to very slowly come up to a sit, and then we're going to come all the way up to a stand. So I want you to take your time coming back up to make sure that there's no dizziness or lightheadedness. And we're going to grab our staff. We're going to do a little bit of shoulder mobility, and then we're going to do some foot mobility from the standing position. So with the staff, I want to get a nice shoulder width grip of the staff. And this is where we're imagining that we're trying to break the bar or break the staff in two. And I want that break or that bend to happen at the wrist, at the elbows, and at the shoulder blades. So we're trying to bend the staff at the wrist. Elbows are spiraling up towards the ceiling, and feel the shoulder blades packing down onto the upper back. We'll keep the staff at our side in front of us at the moment. And we're going to start by coming right back into our breath. I want to breathe in and fill up that belly into the front and allow the pelvis to tilt so that we get some sway into our low back. And then on the exhale, drawing navel into the spine and scooping the pelvis. Feel that tightness and contraction into the lower core. Inhale, fill up the belly, nice big sway in the back. With each one, draw that navel in a little bit more and see if you can get a little bit more scoop in that pelvis. Once you start to feel that core engagement with your scoop, on the next inhale, as you exhale and scoop, we're going to pull our elbows up towards our ears and see how far back can we pull those elbows without losing our back, without losing our core. So I don't want to get into a sway back with the elbows up. I want to maintain that scoop as you pull. Then you're going to lightly let the arms come forward as you inhale, filling up the belly, sway, get that sway in the back. Exhale, navel to spine, scoop, and pull the elbows back at the same time. We'll do about 10 nice, slow squeezes of that elbow. See if you can go a little further on each one. Again, keep that nice tension in the staff as if you're trying to bend it or break it. We're then going to move the staff to behind the body. Palms are facing backwards, still bending the staff, but we're bending it away from the body. So the elbow pits are still spiraling forward, and we should feel the shoulder blades packing down and back. This will naturally kind of open and lift the chest. We can get a little bit of a bend in the hips on this one. We're going to inhale into the belly, exhale, drawing navel into spine as you lightly lift elbows up to the ceiling. Inhale, let the elbows soften down. Exhale, lift and squeeze slowly. As we lift and squeeze, I want to continue to have this spiraling action, like we're trying to bend and break the staff. Again, we're trying to break it away from the body. So that spiraling should naturally open up and extend the chest. So as we're lifting the elbows, feel the sternum open up towards the ceiling. I don't want the shoulders to round forward and hide the chest down to the floor. I want to feel that chest open up as much as possible without going into pain or stress or discomfort. After 10, we'll flip our palms to the opposite direction, continuing to spiral the bar and bend the bar away from the body. Everything else is the same. Soft bend in the hips. Inhale, filling up the belly. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as you lift elbows up. Each one, we're seeing if we can squeeze a little higher without forcing it and without going into pain. Again, also continuing to bend the staff away from the body as we lift in order to feel that opening up of the chest towards the ceiling. Once we do 10 of those, we're now going to use the staff just as a just for balance, a little extra stability. We're going to go into our 6 walks. The first one, we'll do 5 to 10 of each of these. This is a really powerful foot mobility as well as foot activation drills. This is a great drill for rebuilding the springy nature of our feet, which most people lose, especially with a lot of the shoes that we tend to wear. So we're going to start with our step is going to go lightly out away from the body, and we are only landing on the ball of the big toe. The ball of the pinky toe side is off the floor, and the heel is completely off the floor. I'm going to load into the ball of the foot lightly and allow the knee to track internally lightly. So the knee tracks light inside, and then we're going to unload. You can keep the foot in contact and just add a little body weight and then press out, keeping the foot in contact with the floor. Especially if the foot feels unstable, I want to make sure that we are staying in a safe position. If you're able to, I want to let that spring load the spring and unload the spring. So we're kind of inhale as you load, exhale as you unload. And I want to see if you can feel that spring as we load into the ball of the foot. Can you feel it activate into the arch of the foot? A little bit of a stretch as we load and unload. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, foot comes out wide, knee turns in lightly as we load just on the ball of the big toe. Heel does not touch. Outside ball of the foot does not touch. We're only placing just on that ball of the big toe pad of the foot. This is a great place on each of these to notice the difference of how it feels on the right foot compared to the left foot, because that's going to be incredibly relevant to how your glutes are functioning. If one foot is stiffer than the other foot, if one foot is more sensitive and painful, I guarantee there's going to be some relationships into the glutes. Switching back to the first foot, we're now going to, still stepping out away from the body, we're now going to place on the outside ball of the foot. So the big toe ball of the foot is now off the floor, heel is still off the floor. Same idea, now the knee is going to lightly track out and away from the body. Lightly load and unload. Feel some of that weight on the foot and then unload that weight. See if you can start to feel the springy nature of the foot. If you're able to let that foot come off lightly and let it load and unload, as long as that feels safe, I want to make sure that we're not in a situation where we're going to roll that ankle. That would not be good. Again, inhale as we load, exhale as we unload. And then we'll switch and do the same thing on the other side. Again, knee tracks out. Notice if it feels a little different on this side. Is it stiffer? Is it a little achier? Do you notice any sensitivity in the knee, hip, or low back on any of these? I want to stay aware and not just be oblivious to the rest of the body. What's happening at the foot is going to reflect elsewhere. So if you got knee pain, hip pain, back pain, those are things that we want to talk about. We're now going to switch back to the first foot. We're going to come back to the exact same starting point on the inside ball of the foot. So outside ball and heel are off the ground to start with. But now as we load, we're going to let the heel come into contact with the floor and then release the heel and then release the ball of the foot last. Knee is tracking internally again. Very light. Again, it's unload and load and unload. Allow the heel to touch and then immediately unload. You may feel this a little bit more in that medial arch of the foot, especially if it's tight. So I want to stay, again, we're staying light and juicy and we're not being forceful here. And after 5 to 10, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, knee tracks internal. Feel the ball of the foot hit the ground first, then the heel, and heel lifts first, and then the ball of the foot. And again, I want to kind of see if we can feel that spring-like action. Can you feel it? Load the spring and unload the spring, and feel it kind of propel you off through the ball of the foot. And we're going to switch to the other side, and now I got foot's a little bit more, not quite out so much, it's a little bit more straight out in front. And we're going to roll as much as we can onto the outside blade of the foot. So I'm trying as much as you can. Now, if you have history of ankle sprains, this may be a really sensitive position. So I want to make sure that we're not going into a position that feels unstable in which you're going to fall. So again, part of the reason we got the staff is so that we have extra support. If you got a chair or a couch around you, that's great too. So as we get on that outside blade of the foot, I want to try to keep the heel off the ground. Just that outside edge of the heel, not touching. Just the forefoot, midfoot and forefoot blade or a lateral edge of the foot. Knee is going to track out again. This one I want to be light on, so we're just going to load and unload. Again, the foot can start out being in contact with the floor to make sure that this feels safe. And we're just placing just enough pressure on that body weight on that foot that we feel safe with it. If that feels pretty solid, we can start to load and then unload the foot. Again, feel for more of that spring-like action. But I don't want to put so much weight into this that you feel like you're going to roll your ankle. That would be the opposite of what we're seeking here. This particular load and unload is great for rebuilding the stability of the ligaments in the ankle. And we'll switch and do the same thing on the other side. So let that foot come out in front, lightly roll into it. Heel stays off again, and we're just lightly putting pressure in and taking it off to make sure that that ankle feels safe. As it feels safe, you can slowly start applying a little bit more and seeing if you can find that spring-like action. Can you load that that blade and then unload it. And how does it feel different on this side? Does one side feel stiffer, tighter, achier, less springy than the other side? Again, that's going to be real important when we come back up and we're looking at our glute function. We got 2 more in our 6 walks. Now we're going to get where our step's going to come out more in front. We're going to start by, I only want to load the inside part of the heel. So my step is actually going to come out just a little bit, and I want to track the knee internally. We're still looking for that spring, but stepping on the heel is not very spring-like, so it's not going to feel quite as spring-like. But again, I want to load and unload, load and unload. And again, pay attention to how does this feel in the heel? How does it feel in the knee? How does it feel in the hip and the low back? I have a little bit of sensitivity on the medial knee on my right knee. This knee I've had 5 surgeries on, and so this is an area where I tend to get some discomfort. So got to stay light on it, and we don't want to be moving into pain. Switching to the other side, same thing. Inside heel, letting that knee lightly track internally and then unloading it. And trying to find as close to a spring as we can on our heel. Again, notice the difference of how it feels on one side compared to the other. My right side felt more spring-like even though I had some sensitivity in the knee. This left side is like, feels really, there is very little spring taking place. For the last one, switching back, now we're going to step across a little bit, right at the midline or across the midline, and turning the foot so the ball of the foot's facing away. Knee is going to lightly track out again. And again, this is a light load and unload. And again, seeing if you can kind of find that springy nature of that foot. This is kind of like when you're taking a walk, when you're walking, this is just that nice stride, generally where your foot should be striking the ground at the initiation of a gait of your step. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, have that foot nice and turned out, landing on the outside edge of the heel. Knee is lightly tracking out and away. Nice. All right, we're now going to come down into our half kneeling position. So half kneeling, if you have super sensitive knees, we can do all of the half kneeling in the chair by sitting sideways in the chair. So I got the back of the chair to the side of me. I still want knee directly under the hip, under the shoulder. Knee does not have to touch the floor here. And I want to make sure that that back foot is tucked and loaded in the exact same way. So this is a good alternative to being in the half kneeling position. If you can get into a half kneeling on the floor, I want the knee directly under the hip. That back big toe is tucked underneath and loaded as if we were going to come out of this into a dead sprint. I want to feel that big toe mobile and loaded. So knee, hip, shoulder, head should be in alignment. We're going to focus on this back hip. We're going to breathe into our belly, allowing the pelvis to tilt forward, getting a sway in our back. We're going to exhale, drawing navel into spine, and we're going to scoop the knee side down, hip, and feel that stretch through the front of the thigh. Nice inhale, feel that tilt forward. Exhale, navel to spine, and scoop. Notice as we scoop and get this stretch through the front of the thigh, we should also feel that big toe loaded and grounded as well. With each one, see if you can scoop a little bit more into it. Can you increase that range of motion in your scoop? And what I want to notice with this scoop, As you scoop, you're getting into full hip extension, which means that you're also getting glute contraction. So you should feel your glute tightening up. So scoop into it and notice that tension in the rear. And then we'll switch and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So again, big toe tucked and loaded. Notice if that big toe feels tighter on this side than it did on the other side. Knee under hip, under shoulder, under head. Inhale, filling up the belly, getting a big sway in the back. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as we scoop into it, feeling that stretch and load through the front of the thigh. With each one, seeing if you can get a little bit more breath in, and exhale, can you scoop into it a little bit more? Can you feel that load to the front of the hip with the big toe at the same time? How does it feel on this side compared to the other side? And then start as you get more and more scoop, a little bit more stretch in the front, can you start to feel that activation and contraction in the glute in the rear? And if you're feeling a difference, an imbalance between the glutes, one side to the other, then these are movements that we want to work on in order to feed some neurology into the glutes and get them working and functioning. And go ahead and switch back to the other side. We're going to do the exact same thing. I'm changing my orientation because we're now going to add our reach. So back toe is still tucked underneath. We're breathing in, filling up the belly. Exhale, drawing navel to spine as we scoop. And then we're going to add to it. So as you get that nice scoop, drawing the navel in, the knee that is down, we're going to reach that arm straight up to the ceiling like we're trying to touch the ceiling. Inhale, let the shoulder soften as we fill up our belly. Scoop, the pelvis tilts to the floor, sway in the back. Exhale, scoop, draw in, feel that stretch through the front. Get that glute to activate, and then see if you can reach as high as you can. Now on this, as I reach, I don't want to drop my opposite shoulder to try to reach higher. I don't want to do this where I'm dropping my shoulder. I want my opposite shoulder remaining at the same height so that when we scoop, we're seeing if we can reach and extend higher. See if you can feel that first stretch get drawn up into the abdominal viscera with that reach. And can you reach a little bit higher on each one? And then we're going to switch back to the other side and do the exact same thing. Nice inhale, filling up that belly. Exhale, navel to spine, and then applying a nice reach. And on this, I want to pay attention to how does it feel on this side compared to the other side. Both of my hips felt relatively even in tightness when it was just mobilizing the hip, but adding in the reach, this side is significantly tighter and I feel it down in the hip once I add in the reach. Again, super helpful, useful information as far as understanding where some of our patterns are coming from, is noticing these imbalances from side to side and relevance as far as what movements we're applying to them. All right, so we're going to switch back to the other side. We're now going to take our staff up, and we're going to use our staff to help keep our shoulders square. So I'm going to bring the staff up to the very tops and tips of the shoulders, and we're going to bring both hands over the top of the bar so that our elbows lift up. This will give our that staff a nice platform to sit so that it's touching across both shoulders. It can be touching across the clavicles and then right across the front of the shoulders. This is going to help keep our shoulders square. So we're doing everything else at the hip is the same. Nice inhale, filling up the belly, sway in the back. Exhale, drawing in navel as we scoop. And now we're going to add rotation. We're seeing how far can we turn our chest towards the side that the knee is up without losing our bar across our shoulders. And I want to squeeze into it. Inhale as you bring it all back to the front. Fill up the belly, sway in the back. Exhale, draw navel up and in, and then apply rotation second. Again, get that scoop, feel the glute contract, and then how far can you rotate? Can you rotate a little further, again, without losing contact with the bar? Notice how far you're able to go on this side so that we can compare to the other side. And then we'll go ahead and switch as we move across. So again, big toe is tucked in the back. Inhale, filling up that belly. Exhale, drawing in the navel. And then turn towards the wall of the knee side up. Inhale, fill up that belly, big sway in the back. Exhale, scoop active. Exhale, rotate active. Can you squeeze a little bit more in each one? And how does this side feel compared to the other side? Are you able to go further? Does it feel more restricted or less restricted? Does it feel tight in different places? Take note of where it feels tight in different places. And we're going to go ahead and set the staff off to the side. And we're going to come down into our shin box. And we're going to do a little bit of hip mobility. And then we're going to come back and we're going to finish up with some glute activation. So I'm in my left side shin box. Left arm is down. I want to spiral that elbow out and away. Feel the shoulder blade pack down and back and that nice lift in the chest. And we're going to start with just some light knee hip openers. I want to make sure that this is not painful on the knee or the hip. So if this is a movement that is painful in the knees, probably better to just skip it and schedule a session with me so that we can talk about how to get through it. Otherwise, I want you to go to the next movement that we're doing. So focusing on this back knee, taking a nice inhale, filling up the belly. On the exhale, you're going to draw the navel in, and you're going to lightly lift that back knee up to the ceiling. Inhale, letting it back down. Exhale, lift and squeeze. I want to lift that knee without getting a whole lot of movement in our upper body. So that's why I got this shoulder locked down. So all I want is this light hip opener. And we'll do 5 up to 10. Each one going slow and squeezing slowly into it. I don't want to be forceful. And then we'll switch and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, grounded palm, spiraled out elbow, shoulders packed, sternum is lifted, locked in shoulders, focusing on that back knee. Nice inhale into the belly, exhale, drawing navel to spine as we lift. Ooh, this hip is a little tighter. So again, notice the difference. Are you able to go as high on both sides, or is one side a little tighter than the other side? And each one, we're very slowly and lightly squeezing up, seeing if we can get a little bit more range, but we don't want to force it. I don't want to throw my leg up there. I don't want to try to force it higher. I only want to move within what is open and available. And then we're going to flip back to the other side. Same position, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. We're still focusing on this back hip. Now on our inhale, we're going to inhale, filling up that belly, and I want to let that back hip drop like we're trying to touch the floor. If you're able to touch the floor, feel that hip sink down to the floor. If you can't touch the floor, that's okay. We're still letting it sink as low as it can without going into pain. On the exhale, we're going to push off the knee as we lift that hip up and scoop the tailbone forward. As I scoop that tailbone forward, I want to see if we can feel a nice stretch through the front of the thigh again. Hopefully even a little bit down into the inner thigh, adductors, or groin area. Inhale, let the hip all the way back down. Sink to the floor. Exhale, scoop. And the more we're able to get that hip to open, come off the floor and scoop forward, I'm seeing if we can get this straight line between the knee, the hip, and the rib. If that hip is behind, that straight line is going to come up and it's going to miss the hip. It's not going to go through the center of the hip. So I want that hip up as much as possible. The more you're able to get that hip extended, the more you're going to feel that glute contract in the rear. So again, this is what I want to ultimately see if we can feel that, and how much can we feel that. Scoop into it actively. Try to get as much of that activation in the back as possible. And then we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. Again, grounded palm, spiral elbow, pack shoulder. Inhale, let that hip sink to the floor. Does it sink as far as the other hip, or is it a little higher? That's going to be an important assessment. Or does it sink even deeper, right? Do I have even mobility on my right side as I do on my left side? That's going to be an important function of whether I have equal glute engagement on both sides. Inhale, filling up the belly. As we exhale, drawing navel into spine and scooping that tailbone forward. Feel that load and stretch through the front of the hip. Inhale, letting it all the way back down. Exhale, seeing if we can scoop a little further into it. And again, with each one, we're seeing if we can get more and more of this hip extension. That line through the knee and the ribs should go right through the center of the hip. And the more you're able to get that extension through the hip, the more we're going to feel that glute engaged. Now I want to come back and have a reminder. I don't want to turn my chest. I don't want to move my shoulders. That's going to take away from what I'm focusing on in the hip. So I want to be locked in the shoulders. I'm extending that hip. Shoulders are moving a little bit, but I'm not moving at my shoulders. This right here is going to take away. I can't feel that hip as much. So I got to move into it, locked at the shoulders. How does this side feel, especially through the front of the hip? And can you get that same amount of glute contraction on this side as you were on the other? If not, then this is a movement that I want to build in and do more reps throughout the day in order to try to bring the mobility balance with that glute activation. All right, we're going to switch back to the other side, and now we're going to get into our folds. We're going to use the shin as the arrow. So I want the shin to be fairly square with our chest. We're going to get a nice inhale into the belly. Exhale, we're drawing navel in as we reach both hands evenly through the shin. I want to make sure that one hand is not going farther than the other. That means that you are twisting at the spine. So both hands reach evenly. Seeing how far can you go. Inhale, bringing it all the way back up. Exhale, with each one, see if you can reach a little further without forcing it. Now I want to go incredibly slowly with our breath. Make sure you're not holding breath as you reach. Feel your hips sink to the floor as you reach. And once we've done 5 to 10 reps, we're going to switch to the other side. Again, shin is square with the chest. Inhale, filling up the belly. Exhale, reaching both hands evenly. Now you may notice right off the bat that one side is a lot easier. You can reach both hands evenly, and that the other side is a little harder. This is my more challenged side. My right hip glute feels tighter, and I feel my whole body want to lean. So as I reach with both hands, I don't feel like I have quite as much mobility. Really, my body wants to rotate a little bit because I'm a little tight in this right side low back. I don't want to be forceful with this, especially if you're feeling that kind of tightness. I want to move in the juicy nature of the movement. Seeing how much further can I get on each one without forcing it. Nice big inhale, nice big exhale. We're now going to switch back to the other side, and now we're going to do really what is kind of one of the first glute activation drills. This is working the eccentric nature of the glutes. So we're going to be working coming up to our knees from our shin box position, and then finding the stretch in our glutes as we come back down to the floor. But first, I want to make sure this position is not painful on the knees. If this is painful on the knees, then you're going to have to skip this movement. How we're going to judge whether it's painful is we're going to walk ourselves up first using our hands. So I got one hand in the back, other hand in the front, and I'm using my upper body weight to pull myself up to the knees, and I'm just seeing, is this comfortable? Is this painful? At the top, we can scoop that tailbone into it a little bit, feel that loaded stretch through the front of the hips, and then use our hands to guide us back down to the floor. And then we're going to come to the other side and do the same thing. Again, I'm making sure that there's no grindage in the knee, that this is not something that is painful. We got to have good movement mechanics to do this movement. So checking the other side, scoop into it, feel that stretch, ease yourself back down. If this is not painful, we'll come back to the first side, and we can continue. If that was at all irritating on the knees, I want you to skip this part. So now, if we can, we're going to see if we can do it without hands. We're pressing through both knees evenly, driving knees into the floor, get that scoop at the top. Now on the way back is where we're finding that stretch of the glute. So I'm not just dropping the hips down, I'm really seeing how far back can I reach my hip. Like I'm trying to reach my tailbone back and to touch the wall behind me, and I'm going back until my hips kiss the floor, and then I'm popping right back up. Now as I get into a different position, as I'm reaching, we can add a counter reach through the hands, reaching forward through the fingertips. As you reach back, see if you can feel more of that stretch. I want to get as low to the floor as possible and then pop back up, making sure we're not going into pain or stress. I want to feel that nice loaded stretch here at the bottom as we're reaching back. And we'll do a good 5 of those or so, and then we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. I'll go this way. I think it's a better view. Exhale, drive, scoop at the top, and then we're reaching that tailbone back, sliding back. I'm seeing how far back can I reach. Again, I don't want to just drop straight down. There's no stretch there. I'm reaching back, sliding that hip along the floor, counter reaching through the fingers. Once I kiss the floor, driving through the knees to pop back up. Notice if it's harder on this side. Do you get a bigger stretch on one side? Are you able to go as low, or do you feel that you're farther off the ground? Can you touch the floor on both sides, or is one side not getting you that far? That's going to be a pretty strong indication of some imbalances in the hips. Once we've done 5 on that side, we're now going to come back onto our back. We're going to place both feet flat to the floor, about shoulder width, hip to shoulder width apart. I want the knees to be even with the heels. So I don't want the knees caving in or turning out really wide. We're going to come back and focus on our breath with our pelvic tilts first, and then we're going to work into a hip bridge, again, for glute activation. So filling up the belly, let that belly rise up to the ceiling, big sway in the back so that we have this space underneath our low back, and then exhale by drawing our navel into the spine and lightly scooping the pelvis. Feel the low back flatten out to the floor. Inhale, fill up the belly. Exhale, nice scoop. For right now, I don't want a lot of pressure in the feet. I don't want to lift up the hips. I'm not pushing through the floor just yet. We're going to add that in just a second. I want to have this movement all generated through the abdominals. Inhale, feel the lift at the belly. Exhale, drawing belly into the spine. That draws that scoop in. On the next inhale, as you exhale, we're going to exhale and we're going to continue to scoop and peel the sacrum off the floor. And that's then going to peel the L5, and we're going to keep scooping. L4, L3. I want to turn that tailbone like we're trying to reach the ceiling with it. Scooping up, getting as high as we can so that we feel that nice stretch through the front of the hips. And then we're going to inhale as we let each vertebrae down one at a time. L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, and then sacrum. On the way down, it's really hard to feel each of those vertebrae touch one at a time because we have a natural anterior curve to our back. But the more we work on that mobility, you can get to where you can feel that segmental drop down one at a time. So getting back to that nice sway in the back on the inhale, exhale, draw the navels in, scoop the tailbone one vertebrae at a time. See how high can you turn that tailbone up like you're trying to touch the ceiling with your tailbone. Can you feel that stretch through the front of the thighs? Inhale, bringing it back down. As we're down on the floor, I want you to check in with your feet again to make sure that we have a nice tripod. I don't want to just be pressing through the heels. I don't want to just be pressing through the balls of the feet. I want to press through all 3 points of contact evenly. Ball of big toe, ball of pinky toe, and heel. As you exhale and scoop, we're now seeing if we can scoop higher and higher. Again, knee through to rib cage should go right through the hip. The more I get that hip extended up to the ceiling with my rib down, you're going to feel that glute fire up. That's what we want to feel. Can you feel that on both sides? Inhale, letting it all the way back down. Exhale, scoop and lift. Again, each one a little higher. Are you noticing that? Can you get that extension in the hip? On the next one, as we exhale, coming up to our lift, we're going to stay at the top. So exhale, scoop, drive. Now that we're here, we're going to bring in our breath and let our pelvis tilt again. So we're going to inhale, filling up the belly, let the pelvis tilt. You might feel like your hips dropping a little bit. On the exhale, we're drawing that navel in and we're scooping into it again. We're going to do about 5 to 6 breaths. So on the inhale breath, let the belly open up, a little sway in the back as the pelvis tilts. Exhale, scoop. Try to keep the hips elevated as high as possible on this. So I don't want to let the hips drop all the way down. We're inhaling and that's tilting the hips to the floor, but they're not dropping. And then we're exhaling and we're scooping that tailbone back up. By the time you get to 5 or 6 breaths, you should notice the glutes kind of lighting up on fire. We're going to bring our hips back down to the floor. We're going to come back to our glute assessment that we did earlier in the session. So let the legs go flat. You're gonna bring one foot to flat to the floor, and then 45 degrees from the midline of the body. Nice tripod foot. I'm gonna switch so you have the other foot in view. So nice tripod foot, driving downward through the knee, scooping that tailbone up towards the ceiling, feeling into that front of the thigh. Can you feel the glute tighten up? Inhale, bring it all the way back, let it touch the floor. Exhale, navel comes in as we scoop. Make sure that knee is staying straight over the heel as we drive. And we're trying to squash grapes here, right? I want to make wine or grape juice. You got to get all that juice out. Make sure you're feeling that entire foot spread out on the floor, grounding down as you scoop that tailbone up. Can you feel activation in that glute? How does the knee feel? Does the knee feel shaky and wobbly? Are you getting a big stretch on the front of the thigh? And really, how does it feel compared to the beginning of the session? Does it feel a little bit more active? We're then going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. Again, nice flat foot, feeling the foot spread. Inhale, filling up the belly. Exhale, pressing down through the knee as you scoop that tailbone up towards the ceiling. Inhale, letting it back down. Each one, squash some more of that juice out from underneath your foot as you're scooping that tailbone up. How does the knee feel? Does it feel shakier or less on this side? How does the front of the hip feel? Big stretch, little smaller stretch. Can you feel the activation in the glute? Can you feel it contract at that top end range? And can you move into it a little bit more? Especially compared to the beginning of the session. Good. So hopefully you felt a little bit more glute activation. If you're still feeling there's an imbalance, again, this is a movement I would do more frequently throughout the day. And the whole purpose of it is we're building neurology into the glutes. So we want to balance that neurology out. All right. We're going to come back to our crocodile breath, making our big C shapes with our hands. Again, thumbs are going into the low back musculature. Index fingers into the abdominal musculature, and palms are pressing into the side body. Want to make sure we're below the ribs and above the hip bones in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. And we're squeezing in lightly to create resistance for our inhale. We're going to take a nice inhale through the nose, and we're filling up that balloon. See, and I want that balloon to expand in all directions evenly on the inhale. Exhale, draw the navel into the spine as you let your hands clench down a little bit again to create that extra resistance. With each one, see if you can expand your balloon a little bit wider, a little bit bigger, and make it even. It's normal for most people to be able to breathe easier into the abdominals, into the belly, and it's harder generally to breathe into the side and into the low back. So go slow and see if you can work on an even expansion in all directions. Feel that low back area expand out into the floor. Exhale, full exhale. Draw that navel all the way in. And then expand that balloon even more. After 5 to 6 breaths, we'll let our arms soften down to our side. And I now want to allow that breath to move more up into the ribs, into the chest, and into the shoulders and neck. Same idea. Breathe in, feel that nice balloon expansion in all directions, Upper back moving into the floor, chest rises. Nice exhale. Start to let tension melt to the floor. On the inhale, we're breathing into tension, noticing the areas where it is a little tight, a little dense, a little dark in the way it moves. Breathe into that tension on the inhale. On the exhale, allow that tension to rinse off or melt off the body. Notice any areas where you're still holding tension, whether it's in the head, the neck, shoulders, low back, hips, or even feet. Breathe into that tension. Exhale, allow that tension to go. And when you're ready, we're going to open our eyes. We're going to very slowly get up. Again, I want to take our times coming to a sit and then into a stand to make sure that we're not dizzy or lightheaded.